Week number 1 of the 2023 Iowa high school football season has arrived, and the Bears will be opening up the season on the road in Williamsburg. I'm Matt Chinander, and I'm joined by Jason Miller, and this is the weekly game preview right here on WestBranch.Football. Jason, to me, week 1 is always interesting because you have a hard time knowing exactly what to expect, especially with the attrition that every school experiences, on a varying level every year. The Bears and the Raiders are certainly not immune to that heading into this season.
And both of them are going to be replacing a quarterback. Both of them are trying to find a running back. The Bears lost their leading rusher, Andy Henson. The Raiders lost their top 2 leading running back rushers, and it's specifically in quarterback Carson Hudapole. Obviously, their leading passer just shy of 2,000 and ran for another 700. So you got to find things. You got to replace. But the good news for both of these teams, Matt, is where they do return some players is up front, and that's where it's going to matter.
Yeah, exactly. So let's start with the Bears. Yeah, the offensive side of the ball, as you just said, the front, offensive front there, that's going to look pretty familiar. But what's kind of known as the skill positions, quote unquote, look a little bit different this season. What are things looking like in regards to that?
Well, it's tough to replace a kid like a Ty Hughes. Before that, it was tough to replace a kid like a Gavin Hirschman, et cetera, et cetera. And then Andy Henson has been the ball carrier for 3 years.
West Branch always seems to find a way to replace him, huh?
And you look at 10 out of the last 11 years, West Branch has had a 1,000-yard ball carrier. Obviously, it wasn't Andy Henson in 10 years, so different kids, different that. So, again, that front line, Matt, those guys up front, and, again, West Branch returns 4 starters of the 5 up front have started basically an entire season. Center Tate France played some very quality minutes, and if they need to go with another lineman, they're going to have a guy that played center all last year in
Reese Trepagna.
See, it's been so long. We're week 1. We'll get better. But on the other hand, as far as skill guys, there are going to be some growing pains. With every team has those when you're replacing things. But I think the good news for West Branch is they got that confidence up front. Look at that beef.
Yeah, so then on the other side of the ball defensively, there's a lot of talent at varying age range, seemingly at every position, huh?
Yeah, age range. Well, you look up front. The guys up front, though, that's where you return the most. You return Logan Wright, who's a 3-year starter, all-stater. Next to him, you got Quentin Roach, who played all year last year, was an all-district player. Mike Montgomery jumped in there as a sophomore this year. He's got a 6'4", 230-pound kid, dog. So you got 3 bigger guys up front. Linebacker crew, Mr. Trepagna is going to lead that. An all-district performer, as I've mentioned before. You got a guy jumping in there, a sophomore. Cooper Gates is a guy you got to watch out for. That's a West Branch football name. And
I've never heard of that. Yeah.
He's a West Branch football player, and he's a strong. He started last year as a freshman linebacker for a 3A football team, or were they 2A? They were bigger than West Branch. That's all that I know. So, and in the backfield, you've got guys in the back that have played a little bit. Kale's experience. Kale Seidel moves over to safety this year, making room for some other guys to get in there and get some experience.
So flipping over to the Raiders, last year 12-1, lost in the 2A state championship game, moved up to 3A this season, and are obviously wanting to repeat that same success. We'd be hard pressed to not start this conversation without talking about Derek Weiskopf.
Yeah, you got a guy. Let's look at this. He's been committed to Iowa for almost 2 years now. Okay, 6'3", 220. He's all over the field. You're going to see him in so many different parts of the game, Matt. He led them statistically in 5 categories last year: receptions, receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, interceptions, and also he's their punter, almost 40 yards a punt.
And third in tackles.
Yes. And here's some other stats for you. 6'8", 6 feet 8 inches, 56 feet. And 11.1 seconds. Help me out there. 6'8".
Well, he's 6'3", I think. So that's not
state high jump champion.
wow.
He jumped 6'8". I think 6'7" at state. Also got third in the shot put, just shy of 60 feet. And he's 11 seconds in the 100.
I call that an athlete.
That's an athlete. And you look at some of the scouting reports on him from these scouting sites, recruiting sites, their comparison, Jack Campbell. Not a bad comparison. But there are other kids on that team.
Yeah. Tell me about him. What can we expect?
I really think, Coach Ritchie, who's in his 31st or second year of coaching, this is his 23rd year at Williamsburg. They've always had a good program. They got a strong program. Kids go out. They play. We want to be the next Raider, kind of like kids. I want to be the next Bear success story. Race Heitman is a junior this year, was their leading tackler last year as a sophomore. He comes back. He's probably going to tote the ball a little bit, probably going to catch the ball a little bit. And they got 3 guys up front, 2 starters back, but a guy who played tight end that's seen a lot of blocking up front too. So they're going to have 3 guys up front that are going to be back. Again, they got to replace a running back and a quarterback, Matt, but they'll find a way. They have athletes there.
Yep. So, ignoring the final score here, last question. What are you expecting, and I guess what are you hoping to see from these teams Friday night, as they kick this season off literally, and then progress into week 2 and the rest of their season?
The 2 things that come into mind, Matt: 1, growing pains, and 2, emotion. Growing pains for both teams. It's the first game. You're always going to see the defense is usually going to be ahead of the offense in the first week of the season. And when you got to replace some of the key positions, like both teams do, when you got to replace not just your second leading rusher and your leading passer, you got to find guys to gel with the guys that return. But the growing pains of, it's a first game. You're going to have probably your turnovers and your penalties. But the emotion of just getting to play football again for this season, add that in for West Branch, the emotion of Coach Peterson no longer being on the sideline, but they're going to play with that same emotion and pride and family, just that family that Coach talked about for 40-plus years, I think is going to help guide them this season. So it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a tough for the Bears. It's going to be a very, very good opponent, possibly the best one they've seen all year. And I'm going to leave you with this. Fun stat from last year, which has no bearing on this year. But West Branch and Van Meter had a common, or West Branch and Williamsburg had a common opponent last year. Who was it, Matt?
I'm going to guess Van Meter.
Van Meter. I kind of gave it away.
Yeah.
And Van Meter has only lost last year to Williamsburg, 18-13 in week 2 of the season. So pretty strong football program. West Branch is a strong one, too. It's going to be fun.
Yep, great. Yeah, kickoff 7:30 p.m., and we'll be bringing you all the action here on the Bearcast. Join Mike Quinlan and Jared Tiley for the pregame starting at 7:15. If you want to watch the game, you can do that on KCRG TV 9 or on the Williamsburg School District's YouTube channel. We have more info about each of those options on WestBranch.Football. Till next week, for Jason Miller, I'm Matt Chinander. Go Bears.
Go Bears.